spreading awareness of sustainable health in the business hustle space. Natural Podcast is perfect for the high-performing, business-minded individuals who want to work with their biochemistry to achieve success and optimal health. It's Friday, which means it's time for friend sharing facts about health, business, and overall success. In today's episode, we talk to Dr. John Demartini. Dr. John Demartini is a world-leading human behavioral specialist, researcher, best-selling author, educator, and founder of the Demartini method, a revolutionary tool in modern psychology. He has authored 40 books that have been translated into 39 different languages and presented his insights along some of the world's most influential people, including Sir Charles Branson and Deepak Chopra. Harnessing almost 5 decades of research across multiple disciplines, Dr. Demartini shares his life, business, financial, relationship, and leadership empowerment strategies with people all around the globe, enabling them to transform their lives according to their highest values. Interesting facts about Dr. John Demartini is that he nearly died weeks before his 18th birthday. That experience shifted him into a different life course. He has authored 40 self-development books, and he has read over 30,000 books across all different disciplines. Welcome to the Natural Health Podcast, Dr. John Demartini.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You are most welcome. Tell us a little bit about this nearly died weeks before your 18th birthday. What happened there?
I had strychnine cyanide combination poisoning from something that I was consuming without realizing it. And it started locking up my fingers and then my palms, then my wrist, and it started moving up towards my thing, and eventually it stopped my diaphragm. So I nearly died. Luckily, I was found in a tent and helped recover. But yeah, I had a close call there. Real tough call there, right? Like about just weeks before my 18th birthday.
Yeah, definitely. It would have definitely shifted the way you think about things, right?
That, in life, we have these challenges in our life, but I think that every one of those challenges is ultimately on the way, not in the way. And in my case, nearly coming close to an ending is what led me to meeting some individuals that catalyzed a major transformation in my life. And what I'm doing today came as a result of that experience. So I'm a firm believer that that was a gift in many respects. At the time, it didn't seem like it, but I can certainly look back now and say thank you.
Yeah, 100%. And there's so many things in our lives that occur and we're like looking bad and thinking it's a bad experience. But when we reflect like you just did, it could be something that leads you to the way, not being in the way.
Exactly. I really think that anything you can't say thank you for in your life is baggage. And anything you can say thank you for is fuel. So
yeah, I like that. That's a really good... That's a great concept to live by.
Why not ask the question, how is whatever's happening to me today, how is it helping me fulfill what I feel is most meaningful and most inspiring and most purposeful for my life? If you ask that question, the quality of your life is based on the quality of the questions asked. If you ask that question and hold yourself accountable to answer it and start to see the links between the events in your life and what it is that's meaningful to you, you can extract meaning out of anything that happens to you. I always say there's nothing your mortal body can experience that your mortal soul can't love.
Wow, and we've just started the podcast. This is amazing. Dr. John Demartini, is there anything else that's come in your life, that's triggered you to be closer to your mission and vision while you're here on Earth to achieve it? Like this was one of the events before your 18th birthday. Has there been anything else that's happened to lead you where you are now?
Yeah, nearly dying, a lady found me in my tent and helped me recover, cleaned up the tent because it was a mess, helped me recover, took me to the health food store. And at the health food store, I saw a little flyer on the door that said special guest speaker Paul C. Bragg at this yoga class. I attended that class for some reason. I never went to classes, but that one called me to go to it. And one night, this one man, Paul C. Bragg, with his one speech, inspired me to believe that maybe I could overcome my speaking problems and learning problems, because I was a high school dropout. I had learning and speaking and reading problems. And he inspired me to want to overcome that. And that was a dream that I had, to become intelligent and to learn how to read and learn how to speak properly. And the trajectory changed. But I eventually left Hawaii, where this was occurring, and flew back to Los Angeles, hitchhiked back to Texas. This is the early 70s. Hitchhiked back to Texas. And I went back to see my parents again, because I had left home at 13. I visited them when I was 18. And they encouraged me to take a GED, a high school equivalency test, and to eventually try to go back to school. And for some miraculous reason, I guessed, and I passed this GED test, and I had me a high school education all of a sudden, or the equivalent of it. And then I tried to go to school in college, and I failed. I got a 27 on my first test, not a 72, which is to pass. Pass it, you got a 72 to 75. And I really almost gave up on the idea and the fantasy that I was going to be, somehow learn how to read and properly speak, because I had speech impediment, and I was going to a speech pathologist by the time I was 1.5 years old. And all of a sudden, I took that test, and I failed it, and I was really distraught, and I was crying on the living room floor at my parents' house. My mom came home and saw me there, and she said, "Son, what happened? What's wrong?" She hadn't seen me cry since I was about 13. And I said, "Mom, I blew it. I guess I'll never be able to read or write or communicate effectively or go very far, amount to much." Because that's what my first grade teacher told my parents. That's what would happen, because I wasn't able to read and speak properly. And she said to me something that only a mother could say, which shifted me. She paused for a second, then she put her hand on my shoulder and she said, "Son, whether you go and learn and become a teacher and travel the world like you dream, or whether you go back to riding big waves in Hawaii, which I was doing, or return to the streets and panhandle, which I also did from 13 to a teenage life," she said, "no matter what you do, we just love you. And my dad and I are going to, your father and I are going to love you no matter what you do." And when she said that, I closed my eyes and my hand went into a fist, and I saw the vision the night I was with Paul Bragg of me standing up and speaking properly. And I said, "I'm going to master this thing called reading and studying and learning. I'm going to master this thing called teaching, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to travel whatever distance. I'm going to pay whatever price to get my service of love across this planet." And I got up and I hugged my mom, and I went into my room and I got a dictionary out and I started memorizing a dictionary. And I made a commitment to read and memorize 30 words a day. My mom would test me on 30 words a day, on the pronunciation, the spelling, the use in a sentence, everything about it, the meaning of it. And I worked hard and I memorized 30 words a day, and over the next couple of years grew 20,000 words. And by then I was excelling in school. And I found out that I could learn and I could read. I still had speech problems, but I was going to master that. And I started to take advantage of every opportunity to speak in any way I could. And slowly but surely, by the time I was at University of Houston, people were gathering around under the trees to come and ask questions. And then when I went on to professional school, I had a following of students every day. I was teaching 7 days a week. And when I got out and went into practice years later, after 10 years of college, I was teaching pretty well every single day. And to this day, I pretty well teach every single day, of the year. So I guess the very void that you have in your life can become a great gift. That's why I say whatever's happening in your life, see it on the way, not in the way, and be thankful for it, because the things I was told that I would never be able to read, I've been blessed to read voluminously. Never be able to write. I've written many, many books. Would never be able to communicate. I've spoken to billions of people now in media and social media and television and movies and everything else. And they said I wouldn't go very far. I've traveled over 20 million miles on flights, and I sail around the world now in my ship. And they said I'd never amount to anything. Well, I'm now 50 times financial independent. So what can I say? The very thing that my teacher told me, I wish she was around, I'd give her a hug. She said exactly what I needed at the time for me to have a path, I guess. So I'm a firm believer that you want to be able to be thankful for what comes in your life. Even the challenges, the things you think are terrible, they're not. A day, a week, a month, a year, 5 years later, they turn out to be terrific. And don't have the wisdom of the ages with the aging process. Have the wisdom of the ages without it by asking the moment it happens, how is this helping me fulfill my mission on earth? And if you answer that with accountability, you'll use it as fuel right away and catalyze even greater power.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And that you gave us a bit of an insight of, having that support from your mum and how she said to you, we love you no matter what it is that you do. If you do this or this, we love you. That support, do you think that's important? And what happens when the individuals don't really have that support?
Well, I think that's a big part of it, but I also think the challenge is important. When I was 18 years old and I was going to a little junior college, because I couldn't get into college until I passed a junior college first. I was going to a junior college, and sometimes I'd drive there by myself, sometimes I'd carpool. And I was carpooling with a guy who is an engineer who is going to build magnetic trains. He was a real visionary, and he went on to do that, one of the leaders. And I was driving there one time, and he had a guy that he knew that tagged a ride one day in the back seat. And he was kind of this rich kid that was kind of spoiled and everything else, if you want to describe it that way. And he was a little bit arrogant, and he was sitting in the back, and we were talking about our goals. I told him that I wanted to travel the world and teach, and this other guy was saying he wants to build magnetic trains. And the guy in the back seat said, that's crazy. You dropped out of school. You don't hardly have to. You can't speak properly. You got reading problems, and it was true at the time. I was still developing it. He says, the people in this little small town where I was living, they're going to work in a cotton gin. You're going to work in a cotton gin. You have these delusions that you're going to leave this city and da-da-da. And he was really condescending. And I looked at the guy that was designing wanted to design the trains. We kind of looked at each other and go, and says, he just doesn't get it. This is a dream of ours, and we're not going to let this dream go away. And this guy was condescending, but that challenge also catalyzed a determination. That's not true. And I think that's also important. What was interesting, 2 years ago, I was doing a presentation to quite a few thousand people on the internet, a little webinar. And my team in South Africa was monitoring people's comments on the blog that was going. And the guy sent in a statement on the blog, and he says, "Is that the Demartini from Richmond, Texas?" And she sent that to me, and she says, "A guy on here with this name, he's asking if you're the guy from Richmond, Texas." And I said, I looked at the name, and it was the guy in the back seat.
No way.
It was the guy in the back seat. And he was listening to my presentation. And I said, "Wow, a blast from the past. What an amazing thing to have you join me today. How are you doing?" And I sent a little message back to her to send back to him. Then he sent a message back, and I'm not going to use his exact words, but he just said, "You friggin' did it, man." So even the challengers are meaningful. Sometimes the challengers are essential. I always say that maximum growth and development occurs at the border of support and challenge. Just like the ecosystem has, prey and predator, support and challenge, anabolic, catabolic. You need both, because if you get nothing but prey and support, you can become soft and dependent and not driven and get fat and lose your fitness, from overeating, you might say. And if you get predator without prey, you can emaciate and starve, and you need both. So I'm a firm believer that my mom, with her support and the people around that supported and the people that challenged, were all guiding and using that as a feedback. So I don't want to promote only the idea of support. I want people to know that the support and the challenge, when you see them simultaneously, as Wilhelm Wundt, the psychologist, describes, when you see them simultaneously and you see that they're guiding you to be authentic and to fulfill what's missionful and what's important to you, what's really highest on your priorities in life, you're thankful. Support and challenge is what builds respect and builds character. So I'm a firm believer you need both. And I honor both.
Yeah.
And I look for both. If I'm supported, I look for the challenge. When I'm challenged, I look for the support. I look for both because I know that maximum growth and development occurs there. So I honor both sides, and I can easily see that they've been with me all of my life, the support and the challenge.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that story with us. Listening, I got goosebumps all over my body. I was like, wow, yeah, you freaking did it. Like, you did it. Like, that is...
Use friggin'. I put friggin' in there. He used a different word, but you could understand
to emphasize.
Yeah. What was interesting is I immediately remembered that guy. I never forgot that guy. So that challenger had an impact on my life. He was saying that I'll work in a cotton gin, because the truth is, a lot of the people from the small town, there were 9,000 people there. We lived in the country there. A lot of those people did end up in that cotton gin and only working in those little stores in that little town. And so what he was saying was probably true. And because he came from a wealthy family, they probably perceived that, And I did have it. He only knew me as a person that could, that failed school and dropped out of school. He only knew me as a guy that couldn't read and speak properly. But I was determined. I was determined to not let that run my life or determine my destiny.
I feel that 100%. And you're an example to everyone that's listening, to everyone around the world, that these challenges allow us to be the authentic version of ourselves, like you said, to live by our values and to see these things not in our way, but on our way. And that's exactly what you did, and you're a pure example of it.
Well, when you're supported, you tend to depurpose and go down to lower values. When you're challenged and become dependent, and when you're challenged, you tend to go back to the highest values. And it's the challenges that inspire you that make genius wake up. So I'm a firm believer that you want to tackle challenge. Leaders pursue challenges that inspire them. Followers want to avoid challenges that inspire them. Challengers end up with distress, and leaders end up with eustress. And eustress is wellness promoting and life promoting. So I'm a firm believer is to look for the problems in the world and look to solve them. Don't look for the problems to avoid.
And thank the people or the things around us that support us, but also thank the people and the things around us that challenge us and find that medium to push us forward. I love that. I love the story that you shared and how you've just put it all together. Dr. Demartini, what are your thoughts on positive thinking, right? Is positive thinking BS? And why would it be? Like, what is positive thinking to you?
Well, I got a story. I don't know if it take a few minutes, but it's a good story. It might help.
Let's share it.
So I learned about positive thinking when I was 18, when I moved home. My parents bought me the Norman Vincent Peale collection, a 3-volume set on power of positive thinking. And I went out to try to be positive. As I was trying to read it, I had to have a dictionary to look up all the words in the book, but I was gradually growing my vocabulary. So I was reading it, and I thought, okay, if I'm more positive, I'll have a more positive life. That's what I was told. But then I noticed that I still had negative thoughts, and I still reacted to people with negative thoughts, and I still had negative thoughts about people. And no matter how hard I tried, it seemed like I was not succeeding at staying positive. And so I tried all the little gimmicks, the rubber bands around the thing, cancel, and, rephrasing it. And all kind of I tried all those gimmicks. But what I felt like was a bit of a hypocrite. I felt like I was saying, stay positive. I was telling people stay positive because that's what I was taught. And then no matter what I did, I just couldn't seem to maintain it. And I thought, what's wrong with me? Why am I not doing it? I'm beating myself up. Now, I never beat myself up until I read a book on how to be positive.
The irony.
When I was a surfer living in Hawaii, I didn't know about positive thinking. I just had up days and down days and just said, well, that's life. But now that I'm thinking I'm supposed to be up, I'm now beating myself if I'm down. And then egotistical when I'm up. I'm thinking, I'm proud and then I'm shamed kind of thing. And I thought, that's crazy. So I decided I'm going to go and meet these people that write all these books. So I went to a live Norman Vincent Peale presentation, and he admitted in front of 1,000 people that he was one of the most negative thinking people, and he wrote the books to try to get him to be more positive. And I thought, well, that's at least he's admitting he's got both sides. And that was revealing and a little bit more comforting. Then I saw Zig Ziglar, and I saw him live in Atlanta, and I saw him blow it and just absolutely lose it and download a whole bunch of stuff. I saw Earl Nightingale and his brother, and I saw them with negativity, and I saw W. Clement Stone, and he had negativity, and all the leaders in the field that had written these books, one by one, Tremendous Jones, and I mean, I could go down the list of all these people that I've met that are famous people, and they were just human beings like me. And I learned to appreciate and respect them for both sides instead of being one-sided. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm sitting here reading about trying to be one-sided, and I'm not living it. I'm trying to get rid of half of myself and at the same time love myself. This seems contradictory. And I'm trying to appreciate these people. When I get to meet them, they're both-sided. They have positive and negatives. I saw them yelling and screaming and negative, and they're just like everybody else. And then I started realizing, well, is this really true? Is this really a fact? Or is this an opium of the masses? You know, Paul Dirac, in one of his books that I read, he's a physicist and Nobel Prize winner in particle physics. He's the one that came up with the idea of antiparticles. He said that it's not that we don't know so much, that we know so much that isn't so. And I wondered, is this an opium of the masses? Is this something that's being taught that's not really true? So I did a research project. And what I did is I took the 300 top best-selling books in the positive thinking genre, you know, the self-help movement. And I had collected all of them by then. And I went through each book and I underlined every positive word in those books. Literally line by line, page by page, I went through and underlined and circled every one of the positive words, extracted them, put them on a 3x5 index card in the top left corner, the word, and shuffled them alphabetically as I was accumulating them. And I accumulated, out of 300 books, 2,000 of the most positive words in the English language. I know you're probably thinking, this guy's neurotic, but I did it.
What a project. That sounds like fun.
I wanted to know what the most positive words were so I could be positive. And I took the most positive words out of these books, and I extracted 2,000. Then after I got them and I put them in alphabetical order, as I was accumulating, that way I could find them. And I had two giant, you know, these 3x5 cards usually come in 100 packs, 1,000 in a kind of a pack. And I filled up two of those complete packs, 2,000 of these cards with these most positive words. Then what I did is I closed my eyes and I meditated, and I thought of a quotation, an affirmation, a statement, words of wisdom, including only those positive words into a sentence or a quote to remind myself like an affirmation on a daily basis. And I wrote 2,000 quotations, and I published it. And if you go online, you can find it. It's a real book, 2,000 Quotes to the Wise by Dr. John Demartini, a day-by-day guide to inspirational living. So this is, if you go look it up, you'll find this is a real book. It was out there. I sold 3 complete. I printed it, I printed again. This is in 1983, I printed this book. And then it came out in 84 and 86 or 7 again, 3rd edition. So I published this book, and I divided the year, 365 days, into 2,000. So I would get 5 to 6 quotes per day, and I put 4 days worth of quotes. That's 20 to 24 quotes per page. And it's about a 93-page book. And it was a simple book, but it was filled with nothing but the most positive statements that the human language in English could provide. And it was popular, and it sold, and it was used for subliminal tapes by Success Motivation Institute and other subliminal tapes that were big in the 80s. And what I would do is I would get up in the morning, and I would quote these, memorize these 5 to 6 quotes, and recite them 108 times a day. I took these japa beads or rosary beads, and I started chanting these affirmation quotations 108 times a day. So that's 540 to 648 quotations a day minimum. And I kept going because I'd be finished by the afternoon. And I would do a 600 to 1,000 affirmation quotations a day out of my book, and was just reciting them like that to see, what does it do in my life? What impact is it having? Because that's the most positive words, the most positive statements that a human being can do. And I also created a chart, a day-by-day guide. No, it was a day-by-day cycle forecasting form. And I took the 7 areas of life, spiritual, mental, career, financial, family, social, and physical. and I created a chart, and I monitored them 4 times a day at 7, 11, 3, and 7 to find out how am I doing in each of these areas of life and what impact are these affirmations having on these 7 areas of life. So I literally created this chart that had +0, +1, +2, +3, -1, -2, -3, times 4 times a day. And I had this beeper go off, this from Target, this beeper would go off. And every 4 hours, this thing would go off, and I would stop, reflect as I'm doing these affirmations. How am I doing spiritually? Am I inspired or despired? How am I doing mentally? Am I, sharp or am I dull? How am I doing in career? Am I, feeling successful or failure? How am I doing in my my finances? Am I feeling abundant or lacking? My relationship, am I feeling close and intimate or distant? In my social life, am I extroverted or introverted? And physically, am I vital or feeling yucky today? And I monitored 4 times a day, like clockwork, every 4 hours, and monitored how I was doing in those. And I did that for 2 friggin' years, 24 months, 4 times a day. And I wanted to know once and for all, does positive thinking give me an outcome? At the end of 2 years, I got a Texas Instruments calculator out, and I went and ran all the numbers. And I found out that +1, +2, +3, 0, -1, +2, all the fluctuations, I added them all up, and it came out 0 in all 7 areas of my life. And I realized that I had
0
in my brain, like a thermostat. If it got hot, I would sweat. If it got cold, I would shiver. And it kept me stable. And so the idea of being up all the time was a farce. It was not real. And I realized that nature is wanting a balance. If you're puffed up and elated, you get proud and narcissistic and then look down on people. When you minimize yourself, you're looking up at people. And if I exaggerate them and put them on pedestals, or minimize them and put them in pits, and minimize and exaggerate me, I'm not authentic and they're not authentic. And I realized that whole thing was not complete. And I asked myself, why am I having these doubts and negativity? And I found 15 reasons for these doubts and negativities. And so I changed my idea from positive thinking to more of a balanced thinking, and realize that you don't need to get rid of yourself to love yourself. And you don't need to get rid of any part of yourself, because it's all part of a feedback mechanism to help you be authentic. And that was a shifting point at age 30. After 12 years of trying to be a positive thinker, that was the end of it. I stopped that, and I looked for living according to my values objectively with homeostasis and balance, and allowed myself to love both sides of myself and to try to teach other people to appreciate both sides of their life, because they're not going to get rid of half of themselves.
Wow. That's an absolutely amazing story. So I'm guessing now you're a retired positive thinker.
Well, I would say that the amygdala, which is a subcortical area of the brain that is seeking prey and avoiding predators, seeking pleasure and avoiding pain, seeking, support and avoiding challenge, it wants one-sidedness as a survival mechanism. So if you want to just survive and live in survival, then positive thinking is an opium for the masses. And it's a kind of a moral hypocrisy that basically sets you up automatically for self-defeat. But if you want to master your life, you want to embrace the 2 sides objectively and realize that support and challenge and the positives and negatives, the 2 sides of a magnet, are necessary. You're not going to get a one-sided magnet. In the Buddhist tradition, the Buddha is described or said to have said that the desire for that which is unobtainable, the positive side of the magnet, and the desire to avoid that which is unavoidable, the negative side of the magnet, is the source of human suffering. So I just stopped that. I looked at philosophical and spiritual traditions and science and neuroscience and physiology. Nothing pointed to a one-sided game. So I just shed that illusion and got on to the next. And then I started questioning, I wonder what else I've been taught that's BS. And I started questioning a whole lot of stuff, and found a whole lot of stuff that we're taught is not so. It's misinformation. It sells because it gives a high and an opium effect in people. And so that's why I basically stopped that whole mentality. And I went for appreciation. Now, if you're down, positive thinking has a value. But if you're up and you're infatuated and you want to buy land on Mars, you need to have some skepticism.
Buy land on Mars. I love that. Is that the other thing that we're taught, that Earth is the only planet that we should be living on, and then you're figuring out there's other planets we could be living on?
Well, exobiology, I've been studying exobiology for decades. And I've been studying astronomy in those areas for decades. And there's no doubt that human beings are not going to stop at globalization. We're going to go to solarization, and we're going to start to inhabit moons and planets and mine asteroids. We're headed out into space. And right now, there's a lot of obstacles, radiation and gravitational problems and things of this nature, and reproduction and during the travel and all that. But all of those are going to be solved. They're all going to be conquered. And we're going to go into the frontiers of space. And it's just a matter of time. 100 years from now, look back 100 years, and we had the jalopy little old Model T car. And there was really just a little bit of a telephone kind of developing. Look at where we are today. Now we have three-dimensional holographic communications going on and virtual realities. And, we can use quantum entanglement for telecommunications and supercomputers in the making. And we're going to figure out how to go and transport and teleport and all kinds of things. So give us another 100 years, 200 years, 500 years, 1,000 years. It's going to be incomprehensible. We can't comprehend where that's going to be. We can be a futurist and we can try to, but it's 500 years from now is unbelievable. So yeah, solarization and probably moving on to the galaxy is probably the future, and living in space will probably be a standard thing. Our grandkids and great-grandkids and great-great-grandkids, instead of sneaking over their friends and pretending they're somewhere else, they're having a party and they're telling you they're at their friend's house, they're going to be probably going, I don't want to tell my mom, she's going to be upset with me if I'm on the moon for a party this weekend. And I'm really going to be on Saturn because that's where my new girlfriend is. There'd be a whole nother world out there that we can't comprehend right now.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing. I don't know about Saturn, maybe Mars or Venus, but no, I'm joking. Look, Dr. John Demartini, I loved everything you shared with us. And I mean, we can't have a conversation without talking about values. I mean, that's a huge thing that you talk about. You strongly believe that everyone has a hierarchy of values. And then when the highest value on your list is where you're sharp, alert, focused, disciplined, and then the lowest area is where you're procrastinating and not really wanting to get things done. And to awaken your genius, it is to be in area that is highest on your list. Values, right? So from my understanding, your values are researching, teaching, and traveling. Is that right?
Well, my highest value unquestionably is teaching. I mean, if I look at total hours in a year, I do more teaching than I do sleeping. Researching and writing is right behind it. If I'm not teaching either a live seminar or a keynote speech or doing a radio show or a TV show or a podcast or a webinar or a seminar or a workshop or something, I'm researching and writing. I mean, that's what I spent every hour that I'm not teaching. I'm pretty well researching and writing. Traveling is normal for me because I live on a ship that travels full time. I'm traveling from the Maldives to the Seychelles Islands right now out in the Indian Ocean. So I constantly live traveling, while I'm teaching, because that was my dream, to travel the world, step foot in every country in the face of the earth and teach. So if I'm not flying to different countries, I'm sailing to different countries. And so teach, research, and write are simultaneous because I, as I'm researching and learning, I'm extracting and typing and writing, and then traveling. So the fourth one is I wanted to be financially independent doing that. I wanted to, not have to work because I have to work. I want to work because I love to work, and I want to have, fortune and abundance there. And so that's the next one. And next one is relationships. I'm dating a girl who's a famous singer and actor and model in Turkey. We have a long distance relationship. Number 4 or 5 on her values is relationships. So we rendezvous once in a while. I'll catch her in Turkey. She was going to come and meet me in the Seychelles. So if I look at the hierarchy of my values, my life demonstrates it. Teach is number 1. I spend the most hours doing that. That's the thing I'm inspired to do and I love doing, and that's the most meaningful thing in my life. And people go, well, why would you want to do that? Why you don't have to work. Why do you do that? It's because if you look at all the moments of fulfillment in my life, when I get thank you letters from people around the world for the contribution that somehow my research has made, that's the most fulfilling thing in my life. Teaching and sharing and having the feedback from that. I'm sure you understand that because you do it. So, that's inspiring. And I'd rather live an inspired life. I don't want to do second. Why would I do something that's less inspiring when you can be doing something that's most inspiring? It doesn't make sense to me. So I love doing that.
that.
I hope to be able to do that as long as I can. I'm 68 years old and I'm still cranking and doing it. I've been doing it 50 years plus.
That's an inspiration, an absolute inspiration. Have your values changed throughout the life, or have they literally always been in the same order the way they are now? Or has it kind of developed and once in a while it goes up, one goes down? Yeah.
Well, my earliest recollection of my values started out being baseball. When I got out at 4 years old, I got out of my braces. I had to wear braces on my arm and my leg because I had a deformed arm and leg as a child, and I had to go to a speech pathologist. So I knew I wasn't going to do very well in speaking at the time because I definitely had a speech impediment. My first grade teacher told my parents, he'll never be able to speak properly. And what's interesting, I wanted to be in sports, and baseball was my thing. My dad at 3 years old, even when I was in a clunky brace on my arm and leg, my right arm was still free, and we used to toss the ball, and every time we would toss the ball 10 times without dropping it and perfectly throw it to each other, we would step back one step. And so we were 3 houses down the street throwing balls 3 houses away. And I ended up with the strongest arm and a very good pitch and a very good thing, and I started pitching. And I really did well in school. I mean, not in school, but in pitching. And that's what I did until I was 13. And then I ended up living in this Richmond, Texas, where there was a lot of low socioeconomics, and we ended up living in a small town, and baseball fell apart. You couldn't even guarantee there'd be people to show up at the baseball game. No players. So I took up surfing, which is my second sport, and Texas wasn't the surf capital in the world. So I ended up at 14 hitchhiking to California and down into Mexico so I could surf. And 15, I moved to Hawaii so I could ride big waves. So surfing was my highest value from really, it overlapped baseball from 9 to 13. 13, baseball faded out, and now surfing became big. And I was determined to go and ride biggest waves and surf. And I got to ride 40-foot waves, when I was a teenager. And then I nearly died at 17, almost 18. And then I met Paul Bragg, and that's when I realized maybe I could overcome my learning problems. I never thought I would be able to read or write properly. I used to have people read to me, even Surfer magazine. I could look at the pictures, but they had to read the captions and stuff. So I didn't think that was ever going to happen until I met Paul Bragg, and he inspired me to believe that I could overcome that challenge. And my life and trajectory went to then learning and teaching. And boy, the day I found out I could actually read and understand a word, and the day I could actually speak properly enough where people would want to listen, man, it was like a heaven for me. And I've been on a roll from that for 50 years now.
Wow. So yeah, definitely your values have been strong with, and they show through the years what you've been doing. You've been doing the research, you've been doing the teaching, you've been doing the traveling. Your life is a pure example of your values. And a lot of people might be listening and being like, what's these values things? Why is it important? If you can just let us know, why do we need to know our values? Are they stronger than being positive thinking? Like if we know our values, we can overcome anything in a way, and then use those challenges, like you said earlier, challenges and support to reach our values.
Well, because I had challenges with learning, my highest value was baseball, and I excelled. And then it's surfing, and I excelled when I focused on what was really most important to me. And now it's learning and teaching. So your values, you have a hierarchy of values, things that are most to least important in your life, or highest to lowest priorities in life. And whatever's highest, you're spontaneously inspired from within to do the top one, and you need motivation to do the lower ones. Just like a young boy who loves video games, he doesn't need to be motivated to do the video games, but he has to be motivated to do the chores, homework, and clean his room. So whatever's highest is where you have the least resistance, and whatever's lowest is where you have the most resistance. So once I realized that, 45 or so years ago, I started studying values. I've read everything that's able to be written on that in English, I think, and I've written a book on that. And I think that that's the cornerstone, because it determines how you perceive the world, what you decide in the world, and how you act. And what is human behavior but perceptions, decisions, and actions? So your hierarchy of values is going to dictate your destiny. And the key is not subordinating to somebody else's values, but to live congruently according to what you value most, and giving yourself permission to delegate lower ones and stick to higher ones. If you're not delegating lower ones and going on to higher priorities in life, I guarantee you're going to have a quiet life of desperation, not a life of inspiration. Inspiration spontaneously occurs when you give yourself permission to live according to what you value most, and surround yourself with people that were inspired to do what you want to delegate. That liberates. I don't do anything but teach, research, and write. I haven't driven a car in 33 years almost. I haven't cooked since I was 24. I even have a specialist to come and change my clocks when we go through different time zones. I've got cooks and pilots and, everything is delegated to specialists so I can do what my key focus is, teach, research, and write.
I love that. And they love whatever their key purpose is, which is changing the clocks.
That's their specialty.
Yeah, it's their specialty. They love that. And it allows us to be genius, to be in that genius mode.
I have people to clean. I have the captain. I've got the pilots. Everything is delegated to specialists who are inspired to do what they love doing, to liberate me from having to do something that devalues me. Anytime you do lower value things, you devalue yourself. Anytime you do the top one, you maximize your values. And the moment you value, so does the world.
I love that, because you're not only helping yourself, you're helping everyone around you. You're helping the collective by living in your highest values.
You're exemplifying what's possible. And as Albert Einstein said, the greatest teacher is exemplification. So if I'm going to be a teacher, it's my role to exemplify what I'm teaching. Otherwise, it's just hypocrisy.
I love that. Well, everyone that's listening at the moment, you can jump onto Dr. John Demartini's website and actually do your values. That's an absolutely amazing quiz that you can do online, and I completed mine, and mine came to be service, health, and self-development. So to serve individuals, my health, and to self-develop myself. So those are my top three, and I know that by living by those values, I'm able to achieve what I'm here to achieve.
I was just listening to a little thing on Instagram by Judge Judy. You probably heard of Judge Judy. She used to live on the ship with us. And so I've known Judge Judy. I've gotten to have a good conversation with her. She's a short little, lovely powerhouse. But she said something really profound on Instagram just a moment ago before I got on. And she says, one of the most significant things if you want to have a fulfilled life is to find out what you really have a talent for, what you really love doing, the thing that it really calls you, and find a way of making a living serving people with it. And I totally agree with that. I thought she's right on track. And she's done extremely well because she followed that. And I'm the firm believer in that. That's dead center. I mean, right on the part. And the people I know that are really, really exceptional, that have done exceptional things, that's one of the keys I find common to them.
Yeah, find your values, do those top values, and anything that's not your top values, delegate. And I think us humans, our ego may get in the way and be like, I can do it all. Why do I have to delegate? But you're there telling us that by delegation, it's allowing us to be genius and be creative and achieve our goals.
Well, yeah, I don't love technology in the sense of I don't want to sit there and tinker and tanker with the computer, and I don't want to write code and stuff like that. There's a specialist that does that and puts the apps together and softwares together. So I appreciate those technologies, but I don't want to do a $100 an hour job when I can make tens of thousands of dollars an hour. I'd much rather be using my time more effectively and do something that is inspiring and let the specialist do the job. So I'm a firm believer of that, because you can't do it all yourself. And if you do, you're going to be a jack of all trades, never really a master of anything. Now, I'm not saying you have to, limit yourself. If you love cooking, like I don't love cooking, I have no desire to cook. I have no desire to clean. That's just not my thing. That I don't get up in the morning and dream, God, I can't wait to clean a room or something. So I have people come in and clean my apartment twice a day. So I'd rather find people that love doing it. They dream about that, and surround myself with people that are inspired about it. It's inspiring to be around them, and they're masters of it. I got a story I got to share, and it doesn't matter where you are in the scale of life. My dad owned a plumbing business, He was an engineer, but he wanted to be an entrepreneur, so he owned a plumbing business and hired plumbers to do the plumbing. He didn't actually do any plumbing. He just hired them to do it. And he had to have ditch diggers sometimes to put water lines in new homes and repairing old home water lines. And I used to love, when I was a young boy, I used to love going out on the trucks with the plumbers and learn about plumbing. So my dad used to have me come up and when I got out of my braces, starting at age 4, I was at his office. And he would used to, pay me to, put away things and supplies, and I go out with the trucks with these plumbers. And one day he says, I want you to go out with Jesse, the ditch digger. And there was a part of me that didn't really want to go out with a ditch digger because I knew I was going to be sweating and get burned out in the sun and dig and stuff. He says, no, I want you to go because Jesse Carter is a special man and you're going to learn something from him today. So I went, okay. So I got in the truck with this guy named Jesse Carter. Now, Jesse Carter had an 8th grade education, had 8 kids, lived in a kind of a low economic area, and got paid, not great because he was a ditch digger, right? That's what the job entailed. So I went out with him and we stopped at this house that had been around for probably 30 years and needed a new water line. So we get out of the truck, we go up, and he looks at where the water line entrance on the house is. He looks at where the water main is on the street by the sidewalk, and we have to dig a ditch across there. So what he did is he took this T-bar and he put it down in the ground all along the path to make sure there's no roots or rocks or something in there blocking the trail. And then he watered it with a water to make sure the ground was, not rocky hard and crumbling because it would destroy the grass and it disturb their yard. And he went out there and he put a line in there to make a straight line. He put newspaper on the side of the grass. He showed me how to dig a ditch with a 6-inch sod and turn it over onto the newspaper. So when we get through, we can turn it back and not even disturb the grass. And then he showed us how to dig it exactly a certain depth and then grade it with a level to make sure that there's no bows in it, because if you have a bow in it and a dip in it, water will there and it'll rust quick and won't last as long. I mean, the guy was a professional ditch digger and knew how to lay that water line. When we got through and we laid that water line to perfection, I mean, it was flawlessly done. We put the sods back, patted it back, ruffled up the grass, watered it, and it was it was just flawless the way he did it. And he had me do it and help him. When we left, he said to me something that was meaningful. My job is the most important job on this planet. Because without water, people die. They can't live without water. I bring water to the people. My mission is to make sure that they have water. And I thought, wow, what an amazing mission.
Wow.
And he says, my job is to do such a perfect job that they call your father and complain that we didn't come because they're expecting a messed up yard. And they're expecting to see dirt and mud and waste. And he said, but when I do it, I want them to call and complain and then him tell them, go outside and see the water is done and it's already done, where they couldn't even tell we were there. So that was his goal, to bring water and life to people and to do it with such precision that they thought he never even showed up. And that was inspiring to me. And that stayed with me all my life. To go and do something to such a degree that it goes beyond their expectation. They can't believe it. And to do something so inspiring to feel that what you're doing is meaningful and something that has a ripple effect in the world. Without water, people die. They don't have a life. I'm saving their lives and bringing water so they can function. People want to be able to take a shower. If they don't have shower and they can't cook and they can't do things, their life is disrupted. I'm saving them all those issues. And he was a ditch digger, 8th grade education.
What a proud and beautiful individual to be able to link, what he's doing to a bigger cause, and not just him. It's definitely a bigger cause, because his work wasn't just for himself. It was outside of himself and it was for others. Yeah,
he was an inspiration, Jesse.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Dr. Demartini, why do you think we are here, us as humankind? You know, we can all have our little values, like I shared mine, you shared your values. But why are we here on this earth? Like, what are we here to achieve? Like, what's the biggest thing that us as a collective are here to achieve in your eyes?
Well, I think that the every time you judge, you know, when people ask me where do these values come from, every time you judge and you assign a valency, a positive or negative assignment to an event, and you label it positive, which activates in the amygdala an impulse to seek as if it's prey, and to seek it out, you look for it. Or if you assign a negative connotation to it and you activate an instinct in the amygdala to avoid it, every time you do that on another human being or on another event in life, and you judge it and put it above you and infatuate with it, or put it below you and resent it, it makes you, if you look down on it, makes you too proud to want to admit what you see in others inside you, or too shamed and too humble to admit what you see in others inside you. And it causes a inauthenticity, because anytime you go into shame or pride and minimize or exaggerate yourself, you're not being yourself. And anytime you exaggerate or minimize others, they're not seen as they are. And this misinformation you're feeding yourself with, this judgment, leaves you void and empty because you're too proud or too humble to admit what you see in them is inside you. So you have missing parts. And these missing parts want to be found. And our values in life are derived from these voids and judgments. That's why judgment leaves us feeling empty, and love makes us feel fulfilled. And love is the thing that fulfills the voids. When you have subjectivity and misinformation, you have emptiness. But when you have objective truth and you see both sides of people and both sides of yourself, you have fulfillment. You have the wholeness. And so I believe that whatever we've perceived in the world, whatever our voids are that we've created, determine our values and give us a unique path that's deeply meaningful. Meaning is the mean between the pairs of opposites that we distort in our perceptions. And it drives us to go and do whatever it is that we love that brings fulfillment. And that's unique to every individual and no two people. And the whole world has a plethora of values, hierarchy of values, and every one of them are necessary. Even the heroes and the villains. Without the villains, there's no heroes. Without the sinners, there's no saints. Everybody's needed in the picture. And so wherever you fit into the picture, whether you're digging a ditch or a teacher or whatever it is, health, raising a family, being inspired, being a politician, everything is needed in the big picture. We all have a place. And the summation of all of that, all the values counterbalance all the other values to make love. I always say love is a synthesis and synchronicity of complementary opposites, and all the values are complementary opposites. And there's somebody that has an opposite set of values to you to make the world work. What you want to build, they may want to destroy, and the building and destroying is the transformation that causes evolution. That's why there's extinctions and regenerations and renewals of life on the planet. And we have catabolic and anabolic in our physiology. So we have to have these pairs of opposites in order to evolve. And so that's the beauty of the planet. The planet has the meaning of the summation of all the voids and values of all the lives and life forms on the planet. And we get to participate in that. And it's a very magnificent, I mean, the more I study it, and the more I study it from a microorganism all the way to the human experience, the more inspiring it becomes, more magnificent it's designed. It's just think, if you look at inside a cell, there's a really fantastic video online. It's called Life of the Cell. And if you watch that, it's just mind-blowing, the intricacies of what's going on in a cell. And to think that there's not intelligence in a cell is just folly. It's magnificent intelligence, and the intelligence on this planet and possibly out in the universe is just incomprehensible. And just studying, as Einstein, one of his quotes was, it gives me, it's enough for me on a daily basis to sit in awe and contemplate the intelligence that permeates the universe. And I'm a firm believer of that and exploring that on a daily basis. That's my job, and to share the magnificence of that. We live in a magnificent world and a universe, and we have a magnificent play and role in that, and we have a part to play to make the difference that we want to make. And I think that that's something that's inspiring, that we get a glimpse of that on a daily basis, and make a contribution from that.
Yeah, I can feel your energy. I can feel your excitement. I can feel your passion as you were saying that. And yes, you're right. You've also said previously, we are all worthy of love. And every single person is here to assist, no matter what it is they do. Like you said, if they're a cleaner, a doctor, a nurse, a police officer, an entrepreneur, they are all enough and they are all filled with love and here to help this system of humankind work and help us achieve what we're here to achieve.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that, everybody's participating in what Paul Dirac called the matrix. And when somebody's supporting you, there's a challenger. Whenever somebody's challenging you, there's a supporter. If you can see them simultaneously, it brings you to tears of gratitude to see how the universe in the matrix is keeping you on track with maximum growth and development. It's almost like there's a wisdom there. Now, some people in evolutionary biology believe that it's just survival of the fittest, but what is fitness? If you look carefully, fitness is maximized at the border of support and challenge. Cooperation, competition, creative destruction, destructive creation. It's the balance of opposites, the yin and yang, the Tao mixture of things. And when we actually honor that and realize that, we don't have to run from anything or seek anything. We can be poised and present, called into spontaneous actions in a way that inspires us, and surround ourselves with people that are doing the same thing. And the contribution we get to make expands. And I don't know what the end of that is. When you meet people like Elon Musk, or whatever, and he says, let's go and solve going to Mars, or let's solve transportation, whatever. When we're living congruently, we automatically pursue challenges that inspire us, that we want to solve, to make a contribution, to make a difference spontaneously. It's the way it is inside us. It's our genius waking. And so I'm a firm believer that if we live congruently according to our highest values, this is the path that wakes that up.
Yeah, I love you. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, you and I could sit here for ages and keep talking, but I am wary of time. And I really do appreciate you taking your time out. Before we let you go, are you able to share with us like a little health hack that you may do once a day, once a month, something that really keeps your health on point and keeps you healthy and abundant?
Well, you probably notice I drink water. I've already drank one of these today. It's now it's around 2:00 my time, but I drink about 2 to 3 of these a day. So I'm a water freak. I drink also. In a moment, I'll go and get a quick bite before this astrophysics presentation, because I've ordered it already. I'll just pick it up and eat it. But it is. I get this carrot juice, celery juice, cucumber juice, sometimes mixed vegetable juices. I had mango, grapes, and berries this morning for breakfast with some multi-grain rolls that they make. There's 12-grain rolls, and this Greek yogurt they make live here on the ship. And then I'm going to have some barley, chicken, broccoli soup with carrots in it, and another multi-grain roll and some juice at lunch. And tonight I'll usually have some brown rice and some vegetables and some fish or chicken or something. I eat relatively well. I don't live to eat. I eat to live. I eat to perform. I drink tons of water. I work out, not every day, but usually once a week I do a really great workout, sometimes twice a week. I'm not a fanatic on working out, but I definitely work out, and I keep, I'm the same weight, same thing. I keep steady. I don't fluctuate more than a tiny bit. And I'm doing what I love every day, and I've delegated most of the things that most people would have stress over. So I those are all things that I find that very health oriented. And I keep a record of gratitudes every single day. I've got the largest collection of gratitudes of any human being I've met on earth. It's 33 volumes, and some volumes are 900 pages, and they're 10-point print with 1-inch margins. So I have a lot of gratitudes. So I was born on Thanksgiving Day. My mom told me that if I count my blessings, I'll have more blessings to count. One of my books was Count Your Blessings. I've written books on gratitude. I'm a firm believer that if you're grateful for what you got, you get more to be grateful for. So if you can't say thank you for what you've experienced, you block yourself from having lots to be thankful for. So I document that every day, and I keep a metric on everything that I set out as an accomplishment to do, to prove to myself that I'm on track and to refine my skills to achieve it. And that reduces the distress levels and allows you to have a more vital life. And most people don't believe I'm 68. They think I'm younger. And my girlfriend's younger. And
100%.
So she keeps me young too.
I love that. On gratitude, I'm so thankful, and the audience is so thankful for your time. I really, really do appreciate your time. Let everyone know to visit Dr. Demartini website, jump onto any of your webinars, your workshops. You do some absolutely amazing work, and I'll put all that in the show notes below. But thank you so much for sharing your time on the Natural Health Podcast.
Thank you. No, my mission is to do what we just did, and you just helped me do it. So thank you. That's we both helped each other. Hopefully I helped you as much as you just helped me. So thank you.
100%. Thank you for joining us on Natural Health Podcast. And remember, the missing link between failure and success is your health. Information provided here is opinion of Mahela Raguse and is for information purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. It is not intended to provide medical advice or take the place of medical advice or any current treatment you're undertaking. Consult your own medical professionals for any medical issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to the Natural Health Podcast. It is advised that you consult your doctor or healthcare professional in relation to any health concerns you may be having. Mahela Raguse does not take responsibility for any health consequences which occur from a person listening, viewing, or reading this content. Under no circumstances shall the Natural Health Podcast, Mahela Raguse, any guests or contributors to the Natural Health Podcast, or any employees, associates, or affiliates of Mahela Raguse be responsible for damages arising from the information provided on the Natural Health Podcast. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice to treat any medical conditions in either yourself or others. Please note, if you're taking prescription, do not stop your medication or start a new protocol, including but not limited to supplements, diet, lifestyle changes without consulting a doctor or healthcare professional. If you or any person has a medical concern, you should consult with your healthcare provider or seek other professional medical advice. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something that you have read or heard on the Natural Health Podcast or in any linked materials. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. Neither Mahela Raguse nor the publisher of this content takes responsibility for the possible health consequences of any person or persons reading or listening or following the information in educational content.